When I asked my girlfriend to watch my son for 2 hours, she sent me an invoice for $1,000. I am not your nanny or your maid, she wrote. I replied, understood. Then I drafted an expense summary, back rent, groceries, utilities, even basics, and included a statement for $126,000. She called me, wait, you're serious? I replied, yes. She called her parents upset. At the urgent talk, I just handed them the folder. When my girlfriend sent me a $1,000 invoice for watching my 6-year-old son for 2 hours, I stared at my phone so long the screen dimmed. At first, I thought it had to be a joke. I was sitting alone in the sound booth at the radio station, headphones still hanging around my neck, the red ON air sign dark above the studio door. My shift had ended a few minutes earlier, but I hadn't moved. Her message sat on my screen like a slap, with perfect formatting. Invoice for childcare services. Client, Tristan Hale. Amount due, $1,000, and under it, one sentence, I am not your nanny or your maid. I read it once, then again. The station hummed around me with its usual sounds. Distant music from another studio, soft static from an idle monitor, the buzz of old air vents. Usually those sounds calmed me. Usually the booth felt like the one place where life stayed under control. I spoke into a microphone, people listened, the clock moved in clean segments, and everything had structure. But that night, all I heard was my own pulse. I typed back just 2 words, understood. Then I opened my laptop and started building a document I had never planned to make. That was the moment everything changed. My name is Tristan Hale. I'm 34, and I work as an announcer and narrator. I host evening radio segments, record commercial voiceovers, and do freelance narration whenever I can get it. People tell me my voice sounds steady, warm, trustworthy. Funny, because for the last 2 years, my private life had been built on exhaustion, compromise, and a kind of quiet resentment I kept pretending wasn't there. I'm a single father to a 6-year-old boy named Eli. His mother left when he was 3. Not in some dramatic explosion. She just slowly pulled away until one day it became obvious she wanted freedom more than responsibility. I stopped chasing explanations a long time ago. There's only so long you can keep begging someone to love the life they helped create. After she left, everything fell on me. School drop-offs, night shifts, grocery runs, laundry at midnight, voiceover edits after my son fell asleep, packing lunches while answering client emails, keeping a home together on too little sleep and too much caffeine. Then, I met my girlfriend. She worked in event promotions through a company that partnered with the station. She was polished, attractive, sharp, and incredibly good at making people feel chosen when she focused on them. She flirted with me first, said she liked my voice, said it was refreshing to meet a man who took fatherhood seriously. At first, she seemed like relief. She said all the right things, that Eli was adorable, that my dedication made me different from other men, that she admired how stable I was. For a while, I believed I'd found someone who understood what real life looked like. What I actually found was someone who liked the idea of me more than the reality. Because the reality came with bills, routines, sacrifice, and a child who needed things on a schedule that didn't care about anyone's mood. She moved into my apartment temporarily after her rent went up. She cried one night at my kitchen table and said she just needed a few months to get back on her feet. I believed her. I made room in the closet, cleared a shelf in the bathroom, and told myself this was what caring for someone looked like. Those few months became a year and a half, and slowly, almost invisibly, I started paying for everything: rent, groceries, utilities, Wi-Fi, household supplies, takeout when she was broke, gas when her account ran low, a phone bill once when hers got cut off before an event, a car battery, toiletries, all the little things that add up so gradually you barely notice you're drowning until you try to stand. She contributed here and there, but never consistently. There was always a reason: a delayed payment, a rough month, an unexpected expense, a promise to catch up later. Later never came, but the money was only part of it. What wore me down more was her attitude toward anything that looked like shared responsibility. If she loaded the dishwasher once, she acted like she deserved a medal. If I cleaned, cooked, worked, parented, and paid for nearly everything, that was just expected. Invisible. The first real crack came one night when I asked her to wipe down the counter after she and Eli had done a school project with glue and markers all over the kitchen. She looked at me like I'd insulted her and said, "I'm not your maid." I let it go. Another time, I asked if she could pick Eli up from school because traffic from a recording session was going to make me late. She sighed and said, "I can, but I need you to understand this is a huge favor." Her huge favor turned out to be delaying a manicure and drinks with a friend. I still thanked her. That's the part I hate most looking back. Not that I was used, but that I stayed polite while it happened. Then came the Tuesday that ended us. My mother, who usually watched Eli after school twice a week, texted me from urgent care. Sprained ankle, couldn't drive. My shift that afternoon was a mess. A producer had called in sick. A sponsor segment had to be re-recorded, and I had a voiceover deadline stacked on top of my live slot. Eli got out of school at 3. I had no sitter. For once, I needed the woman who lived with us to act like part of the household. I called her around 1:30. "Hey," she answered. "Hey, I need a favor." Pause. "What kind?" "My mom can't do pickup. I need someone to get Eli from school and stay with him till I'm home. 2 hours, maybe 2.5. Another pause. "I have plans." "Can they move?" She sighed. "I can do it, but this is exactly what I've been talking about." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" "You keep assuming I'm available to absorb your responsibilities." For a second, I just stared at the soundproof glass in front of me. Absorb my responsibilities. Yes, I didn't sign up to be default childcare. It's 2 hours. It's the principal, Tristan. I should have argued. I should have said what was sitting on the tip of my tongue. That principals apparently only mattered when she was the one being asked for something. But I didn't. I asked one last time, "Can you do it or not?" She exhaled sharply. "Fine, I'll do it." At 5:07, while I was waiting on an audio render at the station, my phone buzzed. I looked down and saw the invoice. Professional layout. Cold tone. Total due, $1,000. And under it, "I am not your nanny or your maid." That line hit harder than the number. The number was ridiculous. The sentence was honest. That was how she saw me. Not as a partner, not as family, as a man trying to assign her labor. That was how she saw my son. Not as a child in her home who needed care for 2 hours. "As a service request," I replied. "Understood." Then I opened Excel. If she wanted to make this transactional, fine. I started with the basics. Back rent for 18 months. Then groceries. I had receipts for almost everything because freelance work taught me to document every expense. Then utilities. Then household supplies. Then transportation costs I had covered for her. Then phone bills, emergency expenses. All the random just this once payments that had become routine. By the time I finished, the number was already ugly. Then I added another section, not because I thought I could legally collect it, but because I wanted the truth laid out in full, the value of what I had subsidized. Housing, food, utilities, essentials, repeated bailouts, all totaled. Honestly. The final figure came to $126,000. Was it symbolic? Absolutely. Was it also rooted in reality? More than she would ever admit. Because exploitation sounds manageable when it's monthly. It sounds monstrous when it's totaled. I printed the summary, slid it into a black folder, and took it home. At 5:41, my phone rang. She sounded furious. "Wait, you're serious?" "Yes." "You actually sent me a statement?" "Yes." "What is wrong with you?" I almost laughed. "You invoiced me for asking you to watch my son for 2 hours. Because I'm sick of being treated like built-in labor. And I'm sick of funding your life while you act insulted by basic responsibility. That is not the same thing. It is when one person is doing all the carrying." She raised her voice. "I was making a point. So am I." Then she said the sentence she clearly thought would scare me. "I'm calling my parents." "Go ahead," I said. When I got home, Eli was in his room building a cardboard fort and barely looked upset, which told me she hadn't bothered with much, except waiting for me to get back. "Daddy," he said, running into me. I picked him up. "Hey, buddy." He tucked his face into my shoulder. She was mad. I held him a little tighter. "Did she say anything mean to you?" He shrugged. She was on her phone. That was enough. She wasn't home. Her shoes were gone, but most of her stuff was still there. She had stormed out. At 8:14, she texted, "My parents want an urgent talk tonight. We're coming over at 9. I replied, "Fine." I got Eli settled in my bedroom with a blanket and a movie. At 9, the buzzer rang. She came in first, eyes red, arms folded tight. Her father followed with the stiff, aggressive posture of a man already prepared to defend his daughter before hearing anything. Her mother came behind them, lips thin, expression tense. No one said hello. Her father started immediately. "What kind of stunt is this?" I didn't answer. I picked up the black folder from the kitchen counter and handed it to him. That changed the room. He opened it with obvious irritation, then started reading. His wife leaned closer. My girlfriend's face shifted the moment she realized this wasn't some emotional outburst. It was documentation. The apartment fell quiet. No one likes paper when they're used to getting by on mood and vagueness. Her mother was the first to break. "This is absurd." "No," I said. "It's itemized." My girlfriend snapped. "You are not actually expecting me to pay $126,000. You expected me to pay $1,000. That was different." I nodded. "You keep saying that." Her father looked up. "You're being petty." "Maybe, but I'm also being accurate." Then my girlfriend exploded. "I'm sick of being treated like some maid you can just assign chores to. I am not your nanny." I stared at her for a second. Then I said, "In 18 months, you haven't paid consistent rent. You haven't paid consistent groceries. You haven't paid consistent utilities. I've funded most of your life, and when I ask for 2 hours in an emergency, you send me an invoice." Her mother stepped in. "Relationships are not accounting exercises." "No," I said. "But people like your daughter turn them into that when it benefits them." She flinched. My girlfriend tried another angle. "So paying for things means you own me?" "No. It means I get to stop pretending I don't notice." That landed harder than yelling would have. Her father tried to regain control. "Nobody owes anybody 6 figures." "I agree," I said, "which is why I'm not suing her." All three of them paused. Then I said the part that mattered. "But she is moving out." The room went dead. "What?" she whispered. "You heard me. You're throwing me out over one message?" "No," I said. "I'm ending this over what that message proved." Her mother stared at me. "Where is she supposed to go?" I held her gaze. "That sounds like a conversation for her and her parents." My girlfriend looked shocked, like she truly believed this would end with me apologizing for taking it too seriously. That was the moment I understood something important. She had never expected consequences. She thought I'd be hurt, maybe angry, but still available, still soft, still caring. Instead, the structure disappeared under her feet. Her mother changed tone and tried reason. Couples say things in anger. You don't destroy a whole life over one bad day. I shook my head. I'm not destroying a whole life over one bad day. I'm ending a pattern I should have stopped a long time ago. Then I took 2 empty moving bags from the hall closet and set them on the floor in front of her. "You can take essentials tonight. I'll box the rest tomorrow." She looked at me like she'd never seen me before. "Are you serious?" "Yes." For a moment, her father looked like he wanted to threaten me. But there's only so much intimidation a man can muster while standing in another man's apartment, holding a folder that proves his daughter has been freeloading for over a year. So instead, he said nothing. She packed furiously. Makeup bag, boots, laptop charger, a few dresses, cosmetics, random things from the bathroom and bedroom. Her mother helped. Her father stood there seething. At one point, she knocked over a bottle of Eli's bubble bath. Blue liquid spread across the tile. She looked at the mess, then looked at me. I handed her a towel. She stared. Then she cleaned it up. That tiny moment told me more than the fight had. For once, she had to deal with the mess she made instead of expecting me to smooth everything over. By the time she reached the door with her bags, her anger had thinned into something closer to panic. "So that's it?" she asked. "Yes." "All because I stood up for myself?" "No," I said. "Because you've been using us." The word us hit her hard. Not just me and my son. A small family she had lived beside without ever really joining. She looked past me toward the hallway where Eli's little socks were half visible near the laundry basket. For the first time that night, she looked ashamed. Then she left. Her parents followed. The door closed, and the silence that filled the apartment after they were gone felt cleaner than anything I'd heard in months. I locked the deadbolt and stood there, breathing. Then I went to my bedroom. Eli was half asleep, blinking at the TV glow. "Daddy? I'm here." "Is she gone?" "Yes." He pulled the blanket closer. "Okay." That was all. Children know when a house has been holding tension. Sometimes they don't need explanations. They just feel the weather change. The next morning, my phone lit up with messages. "I never thought you could be this cold. You humiliated me." My parents had to read all of that. "We need to talk like adults." I responded once. "You can pick up the rest of your boxes on Saturday." That was it. I spent the day packing her things, neatly, carefully, not out of affection, just closure. Clothes, hair tools, makeup, decorative things, shoes, half-used skincare products. The expensive candle, she insisted, made the apartment feel elevated. I found surprisingly little that had actually been bought for the household. Most of it was for her comfort, her image, her convenience. At the bottom of a drawer, I found the printed copy of the invoice she had left behind. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I slipped it into the folder with my expense summary and filed it away. Not as revenge, as a reminder. Saturday came. Her parents picked up the boxes instead of her. Interesting. Her father looked tired now, instead of angry. Her mother avoided my eyes while we loaded everything into their SUV. Before they left, her mother paused and said, "She's staying with us for now." I nodded. "She's having a difficult time." I looked at the boxes stacked behind her. "I'm sure," she hesitated, then added quietly, "She says she didn't realize how much you were covering." That almost made me laugh. Of course she didn't. People rarely notice the beams holding up the roof until one gets removed. "She knows now," I said. Her mother gave a small, tight nod and left. After that, life got strangely light. Not easy. I was still a single dad. I still had freelance deadlines and late grocery runs and mornings where Eli refused the shoes he'd loved the day before. But the emotional drag was gone. No more resentment in my own home. No more paying for someone who acted offended when asked to participate. No more trying to convince myself that minimal effort counted as love. I moved things around in the apartment, turned her vanity corner into a reading spot for Eli, got rid of the candle, bought a secondhand armchair, and set a lamp by the window. We started eating pancakes on Sundays. We played music while cleaning. The place felt smaller without her things, but somehow more like home. A few weeks later, she called from another number. I answered because I was curious. Her voice was different, softer, careful. "I've been thinking," she said. "About what?" "About everything." I waited. "I was angry," she said. "And maybe I was unfair. Maybe." Then the truth arrived a moment later. "My parents are charging me rent." I closed my eyes. There it was. Not remorse. Consequence. She went on. "They told me if I'm living there, I have to contribute. And my dad gave me this whole lecture about accountability." I said nothing. I guess I just never understood what it really costs to support a household. "Yes," I said. "You didn't." There was a pause. Then, "Do you think maybe we could ever—" "No." She inhaled sharply. "You didn't even let me finish. You didn't need to." That was when I knew, fully, that I was done. Not because I hated her, because I no longer had any desire to rescue her from the life she created. Before hanging up, she said, "Tell Eli I said hi." I looked into the living room where my son was lying on the rug, drawing sharks with laser eyes. "No," I said. "I won't confuse him for your comfort." She hung up. That was the last real conversation we ever had. Months later, I landed a better narration contract with a regional streaming network. It paid enough that Eli and I moved into a brighter apartment with better windows and a second bedroom big enough for him to spread out his toy dinosaurs like a tiny museum. We bought curtains together, argued over wall colors, built a life that felt calmer, cleaner, ours. One night, while I was making spaghetti, Eli asked, "Why doesn't she live with us anymore?" I stirred the sauce and thought for a second. Then I said, "Because she didn't know how to be kind to our family." He nodded, like that made perfect sense. And honestly, it did. Because in the end, it was never really about the $1,000 invoice. That was just the moment the truth finally arrived wearing a price tag. The real issue was contempt. Contempt for what I carried. Contempt for what parenthood required. Contempt for the idea that living in a home means helping sustain it. The invoice wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a confession. And my folder, the one I handed her father that night, wasn't really about collecting $126,000. It was a mirror, a way of saying, if you want to reduce care, effort, and sacrifice to transactions, then let's total everything honestly. You don't get to enjoy someone's labor for months and suddenly scream exploitation when they ask for 2 hours of help. You don't get to live off a man's consistency while insulting the burdens that consistency carries. And you absolutely do not get to treat his child like an inconvenience with a premium rate. For a long time, I thought boundaries had to be loud, slamming doors, shouting, final speeches. But sometimes the strongest boundary is quiet. A single reply, understood, a clean folder, an open door, and the refusal to keep funding your own disrespect. I still help people. I still love deeply. I still work too hard some weeks and stay up too late fixing things that matter to me. But I pay attention now. I notice whether kindness moves both ways. I notice whether gratitude exists. I notice whether someone wants to share a life or just be carried by one. I'm Tristan. I'm a father. I'm a narrator, which feels fitting because for too long I let other people shape the story of my own life while I kept the peace. Not anymore. Now, I know this. The moment someone sends you an invoice for basic decency, believe them, then answer with the truth and receipts.